All right, well, it is the top of the hour. It is time to get started, and we are glad you're here. Welcome to our November episode of Good News in Parks, where we bring the park and rec industry together to discuss current issues, share insights, and learn from one another. I'm Anne Marie Spencer, and on each show, together with my amazing co-host Jody Adams, we feature 3 park and recreation directors from across North America. We ask them questions about their unique challenges, initiatives, and learning, and the good news happening in their communities. At the end of the show, we invite you to ask questions of them as well, using the Q&A box in the Zoom toolbar. So take a moment to locate that because we want to hear from you. This is an interactive show, and we want you to participate. Also, we always have poll questions for you in the audience for a broader collective view on what's happening in parks everywhere, to share commonalities and to inform content for future shows. We have another dynamic panel of guests for you today, and I'm excited for Jody to introduce them and to share some opening news with us. Are you ready, Jody?
I am ready. Let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, everybody, we've got some international and national shout outs this morning. And not only that, what about that NRPA virtual conference? It was great. They pulled it off. Way to go, Christine Stratton and company. Just want to say thank you so much for great sessions, keynotes, exhibitors were involved. We had accreditation with CAPRA that was announced and reaccreditation. We had the gold medal awards with the Academy and Musco Lighting. That was so exciting, but also the best of the best. And in the future, we not only have had best of the best award winners, but we will have more in the future. But also, I just want to say thank you to everybody that did engage, because again, we are in this together and we got to stick together like that. So way to go, way to rise. And then also, very good news, last week during the ballots and the election, this is what took place. Great news, voter ballots in this field actually passed $3.7 billion in support of funding of passing in 11 states ballot referendums on funding land conservation, parks, climate resiliency, and habitat preservation. And I just want to congratulate the states and the communities that had the courage to move forward during this challenging, unprecedented time. So way to go on that. And here's where you can find the information. Go to Trust for Public Lands website, and they have listed out all the states that had the passage with the ballots and all of the communities and what it's for. So what a great shout out from last week. What a great week. And then coming up this coming Friday, it's really exciting. Not tomorrow, but on the 20th of November, we have the World Urban Virtual Conference coming in. And why am I mentioning that is our beloved Jane Miller is currently the world chair. And you might remember Jane. She's the former director of Minneapolis Parks and Recreation. She's also the past CEO of Pittsburgh Parks Conservatory. And Jane is out there now consulting, which congratulations, Jane, on your retirements. But the bottom line is the theme for this year of the World Urban Parks Conference is Courage to Grow Greener for the Future. And you will also hear Jane speak, and Christine Stratton from NRPA will be one of the speakers. So the speakers from all over the world, and of course, we can learn from each other. So let me just jump right into our panelists, and thank you for your patience out there. All right, Michael Kirschman. Hi, Michael. You're the director of City of Virginia Beach, Virginia, Parks and Recreation. And you're also a fellow member of the American Academy of Park and Recreation Administration. You're also an instructor of the NRPA Director School, Green School, Supervisors Management School. Oh my gosh, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here, and good afternoon or good morning to everybody around the country that's listening.
That's fantastic. Cindi Wight, Oh my gosh, Director of City of Burlington, Virginia, Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront Department. And I'm just going to insert this. She's one of the most prolific cyclists, hikers I've ever seen. You're an inspiration, Cindi. You're also a fellow member of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administration. You have served on numerous NRPA national committees, and you're also been on the board of Regents or the Supervisor Management School. Cindi, you keep contributing. Welcome to the show.
Great, Jody, it's great to be here. And just a little quick note that it's a little cooler up here. We're in Vermont, not Virginia.
I know. And Michael's having his challenges too right now, aren't you, Michael?
I am.
And with that weather, just can't quite control that weather. Troy Houtman. Troy, I'm so proud to have you on the show today. And Anne-Marie and I've talked about it, and we're excited that you had the time to join us. But Troy is actually Director of City of Wichita, Kansas, Parks, Arts, and Recreation Department. He's a fellow and member of the American Academy of Parks and Recreation Administration. He serves as a commissioner with CAPRA, with the Commission of Accreditation for Parks and Recreation Agencies. I tell you, Troy, I just for your information, he actually contributed to the field and came on as a mentor Tuesday night in my class at Missouri State University. And I'm so proud of you, Troy. Thank you again for all your support, but thank you for joining us.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Looking for some really good news. We are talk about some really good news here. I'm excited about it.
Great. All right, let's jump right into those questions here. And here we go. With the ongoing pressures of prolonged COVID-19 pandemic and the challenge of more exposures with staff being quarantined and treated for the virus, just reality. Here's part one, and then I'll give you part two. How are you training your full-time staff and part-time staff differently as it relates to team building, cross-training, and new normal for the employees? And number two, how are you and your staff holding up under these pressures, staying physically healthy, and just as importantly, mentally healthy? And Michael, we're going to start off with you. It's yours.
Okay. I'll start with the training question in terms of how staff are kind of operating differently these days. There is certainly the new normal. All of our staff now with the pandemic have to do quite a few different things. One is all the staff have to do a safety check every morning. This might be similar in cities around the country. You have to do a self-check, answer questions. Of course, the goal is not to come to work sick to limit the spread of COVID. So that's been an internal training. All of the staff, all of our volunteers, even our contractors also have to take a COVID-19 safety training online and check that they've taken that training. A lot of the difference in trainings has been at the work sites due to our new reality. In our maintenance and operations division, we have staff now working different shifts. So things like 410s to limit the size of the crews per vehicle going out to the parks and maintaining the parks. And every time we change vehicles, the vehicle needs to be disinfected and cleaned. So if we can minimize the amount of cleanings and the amount of people getting out of the trucks, that's good. Of course, everybody has to wear a mask. In the rec centers, a lot of the new training's been really all involved in terms of capacity limits, training, and all the state guidelines. We have different state guidelines for childcare, different state guidelines for the pool area, different state guidelines for the gymnasium and the fitness areas. So staff are all being trained on how to operate those facilities under those new guidelines and how to keep facilities clean every hour. All of our rec centers are currently open, albeit under modified conditions. People must register for an hour, come in, swim, come in and work out, then leave, and then everything is cleaned and sanitized before the next group comes in. So that took a lot of training even for the public to understand that these aren't walk-in facilities anymore, that everything is done online by reservation only. So those are just some of the ways that our staff are being trained. We're also having to step up training in terms of customer service. One of the biggest challenges, ironically, our staff are facing at the rec centers and elsewhere is them trying to be the mask police. So the public are supposed to wear a mask when they enter and leave the building. They, of course, don't have to wear a mask as they're working out or of course, as they're swimming. But they do have to wear a mask when they come in and out. A few, minority of the folks don't want to do that, really forcing our staff to be in that position of being the mask police, which can be uncomfortable at times. So that's been a whole new challenge that we've been facing with the pandemic. Do you want me to go into part 2 as well right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So in terms of how we're holding up and staying physically healthy and mentally healthy, it's just a great question. I would say first that staff are doing a Herculean job of keeping our facilities open and keeping our services going. In terms of how they're staying healthy, I would venture to guess each in their own way. Of course, everybody is different. I just saw on our Facebook page just the other day, some of our rec centers were early voting sites. And some of our staff were outside line dancing to music to entertain people that were waiting in line to come in and vote. And it was just a lot of fun. Just trying to have fun while you're at work, keep the public having a good time while they're, of course, waiting for an hour or two to get in the vote. For myself, one of the things I love to do, we're fortunate here in Virginia Beach. We have over 35 miles of beaches. So a walk on the beach, at least to me, is extremely therapeutic. Back in April, my wife and I planted a garden for the first time. And now some of those vegetables are coming ripe. And every day I walk out and pick some more tomatoes or cucumbers or cherry tomatoes. So it's been fun. It's the first time I've ever gotten into gardening. And then finally, last month, I picked up a new sport. I've joined the pickleball craze. So it's been a long time since I've learned a new sport and tried something. And I've been having a lot of fun playing that these last few weeks.
Boy, I tell you, Michael, okay, you hit a really great thing with me. I'm actually a pickleball player myself. So
there's a reason why it's one of the fastest growing sports, right?
It's amazing. I tell you, I'm a certified instructor, and I got to tell you, I am all over it. So
Nice.
Welcome. Hey, that's really neat. It is where we're all venturing out into some new territory of our lives. It's wonderful to hear. Great job. And Cindi, please, I cannot wait to hear from you. Come on and chime in.
Well, I have to admit, I too, and much of it's the age thing, Michael, but yes, I also just got bit by the pickleball bug and
Welcome.
oh my gosh, is it ever addicting? So now I'm playing a couple days a week and that's pretty darn fun. So as far as like the staff training, one of the things, thinking about the cross training, so we're a union staff up here. I don't know if in Wichita and Virginia Beach, if they're union staff or not. So with that cross training piece, with your union staff, you have to first check to see if it's in their job description. And then if it's not in their job description, you're asking, is anybody interested in doing this? Like they're volunteering to take on this additional work, which, we went through this summer when we were looking for park ambassadors, people to go out into our parks and, help the public understand what was going on with the rules. Was that in anybody's job description to go talk about, social distancing? Not really.
No kidding.
And we could get to a point where you could require somebody. The union does allow you at the appropriate time to require, but we never had to get to that point. It's a point you really don't want to get to because nobody really, nobody's too happy when you get to that point. But luckily we had staff who were ready to cross train. Our job descriptions were flexible enough. Example is when our ice arena was closed during the spring. Once the staff there were able to get the ice arena cleaned up, they got to tasks they'd never had the opportunity to do before. Then they were able to spend some time to go out into the park around that arena and help with the cleanup. And so that was in their job description. So to ask them to do that was okay. And they were happy to help out. So that was a nice way that we were able to do the cross training. A position that our city just got about a year or so ago, I lose track of time. It could be 2 years for all I know, was a safety manager position. And we'd never had that before. And oh my gosh, the timing was amazing for this, for someone that we could go to and ask these questions when we had a positive case at a camp. And so that was something that for our city was just incredibly helpful. Another one that was with the training piece is training technology. That was something that we had to go and do with staff. I fully admit that I thought this stuff was a lot harder. I didn't realize really all you needed was a laptop to do virtual conferencing. I just assumed it was something that other people knew how to do. But so we had to train staff in how do you take your phone and you could put like the Zoom app on your phone. You can put the Teams app on your phone, getting webcams for people and really helping, kind of lead people by the hand to help them get set up. But it was neat last night. So it was Tuesday night. We had a park commission meeting and one of our facilities manager had to present to the commission. And it was really cool. He figured out how to do it on his phone. He was at home and we're able to have that. So that was just a really successful, I feel like, kind of training opportunity that post-COVID, will be incredibly helpful, is to be able to do that work. We're about 25% of our staff are working remotely. 75% are still working on site. Right now, numbers are rising in Vermont as they are across the country. And our mayor is just really strongly encouraging as many people as we can have work from home right now, that they should be working from home. And so that's as much as we can, but the staff that we have, I call, they're the heroes. Right from day one, they were at work and they haven't stopped going to work. But we'll get to that one at the end. To get about especially on the how we holding up. I think Jody, you see it. I know Troy, Michael sees it. I'm a very active person. That's my sanity. I often think to myself, my gosh, how do people do that if they don't go out and play? Like if they can't get out there and bike or hike or pick their veggies like Michael. I'm picturing him in Virginia, me in Vermont. Like all my veggies have died. Like everything's died back, and he's still picking tomatoes. So Michael, kudos. If I ever make it down in November, I want to have a tomato from your garden in November. So there's three things for myself that I really focus on that helps me a lot personally with the stress, because it is really stressful right now to lead a department. I mean, it's really any part of any field right now is a challenging, but to lead a department right now, I feel like is very stressful. You feel a lot on your shoulders. You want to be always doing the right thing. You want your employees to be safe. So for me, it's three things. I try to really make an effort to eat well, because that makes my body feel better. I try to make sure I get out and do something, whether it's pickleball or a walk on the beach. I can't walk on the beach. Well, I could walk on the beach here, but it's a little shorter length than those Virginia beaches. And then sleeping. I just try to make sure that my phone, I figured out has this bedtime thing on it, where immediately 30 minutes before I've told myself I'm supposed to go to bed, it comes up with a little warning. You've got 30 minutes before you're supposed to be in bed. So that really helps me personally to survive all this stress. And then with the staff, they're definitely on edge. Everybody's on edge right now. It seems like even more so as cases are rising, people are getting nervous. And we talk about within our management and our leadership teams of, talking with your staff, encouraging them to take vacation days. If they need a mental health day, I admit I used to poo-poo mental health days. Now I realize that, gosh, that's right. Mental health is just as important as physical health. And if people need a break, take a break. That's why we have those vacation days. That's why we have sick time. It's there to use. So that's some of the things. And then just little things. Our park superintendent, I thought it was kind of clever what he was saying, is that he had, if there was equipment that somebody needed, maybe they've always wanted X equipment, but we never really ever had the money for it, or it never was a priority. Is there a way to shuffle money around right now that maybe you could get that piece of equipment, and that would just make their work easier, and then just makes them know that they're being cared about. So just some of the things that we're trying to do here in Vermont to help our staff and help our community. But our staff have to be there. We have to help our staff so they can help the community.
Well, Cindi, you make so many good points, but I'll tell you what, us knowing technology, this is dangerous because we are dangerous now, because I agree with you. I think, and we probably all agree, we've learned so much in the last few months, but my gosh, some of the things I really thought were extremely difficult. So they're still out there, but boy, I'll tell you what, I don't know about you all, but I'm relieved that I've had an opportunity to learn what I've learned. So, inspiration, Cindi, you are one of the best when you when you talk about the physical and mental health. Way to go. And Troy, please take us and finish us up on this one.
Well, very good. So I'm not going to focus so much on training, but I'm going to talk a little bit about communication. And one of the things that's really important is get that communication of all the changes that have been happening. Things have been happening so quickly, and 1 week we're going one direction, the following week we're going another direction. Getting information from our health department, from the state, what's happening across the country. And the silver lining, and Jody, you talked a little bit about this, and Cindi as well, about technology.
Yes.
If anything, we can say, trying to get something good out of COVID, the silver lining is that communication parallels have been happening a lot better than ever before. So we can get on a Zoom meeting, we can text somebody really quickly and do some communications from our phone. And so we've been really needing to work on those communication lines with our staff, because things have been changing so quickly from 1 week, from 1 month to the next. The things that we did back in March and April are way different than what we're doing now. So a lot of things that Michael was talking about in regards to protecting our staff, we have those things in place. Having them come on different shifts, having them drive in different cars. Here's one that's really kind of interesting is last year I would get a call and a complaint from a customer saying, why is there 5 cars at one work site? I get that call now and I could say, they all go in separate cars to be isolated from each other. There's a reason why.
That's right.
And so a lot of people are starting to understand these things and work with them. So we are trying to communicate that information out, that communication on our programming, on our activities, through our social media. Communication has just been a really important factor, not just internally, but how we're reaching out to the public as well. And why are we doing certain things? When we had our playgrounds closed, we had to put out messaging for that. Why were the swimming pools closed this summer? We had to put really important messaging out with all that. And that's not necessarily training, but that's part of the training on how we learn how to do it even better right now. So if anything else, I would just say I've taken that as a silver lining, that we actually had to grow and learn how to communicate a whole lot better for a whole lot of different reasons. In regards to dealing with COVID, it's been crazy. It's been extremely stressful for the staff, but the important thing is keeping them informed and telling them the reasons why we're making certain decisions. And I think that was really kind of critical. And I've been doing weekly staff meetings, including everybody who wants to be part of it. And of course, we're doing it on Teams meetings, similar to the Zoom meetings. So having that communication with staff is really important. Hopefully that's relieving them of some of the stress and making sure that they know the latest things that are happening. But they've been trying to just do some things that are fun. A couple of weeks ago for Halloween, Halloween was canceled for most of the country and for most of obvious reasons. But they did a drive-through Halloween event. And I think they had 700, 800 cars come through one of our parks. And they were just so excited that they could actually do the job. And they felt really good about delivering something to the community that, that they're experts at, and this is what they do. Our whole job is to bring people together. And right now we can't do that, but any little way we can do it, we try to make that happen. And I think that makes the staff feel pretty good. For me personally, my wife and I, we adopted a big giant German Shepherd this summer.
Great.
He's 2.5 years old, full of energy, and he's 95 pounds. And that's what I get excited about, coming home and spending time at home with my wife and my new German Shepherd. And this dog is crazy. He needed a home. He actually came from Oklahoma, was on the streets, and a whole nother backstory. I'll tell it sometime. But found a new home, and we're excited. And that takes my stress away.
Oh, Troy, I am so happy you brought up. And again, to the folks in the audience, these topics are coming out of you. These topics come from your surveys, but this is why it's relevant right now. And you're hearing in real time from your fellow colleagues what is happening to the hour. And that is what's so important is, Troy, you made a great comment on this communication. And I want to applaud you, because that is something that I think we've all increased and we're doing better with throughout. I mean, I can tell even at the university, we're getting better at communication, not only with students, but between all of us as faculty and administration. So I think it's really important what's happened with this technology and everything. But, and then just finally to wrap up this one, you all are great mentors. Thank goodness you're in the field right now with your experience. I have watched every one of you, and I research and I watch, and you have been great mentors, not just to your staff, but to other people in the field. So keep going, and let's just dive into number 2. Okay, question number 2. When it comes to your department, park planning, park and program initiatives, and future development, how are you addressing diversity, inclusion, overall social equity throughout your department in these areas? And Cindi, let's start with you this time.
Sure. So our city just recently hired a racial equity, inclusion, and belonging director who just recently have hired a consultant to do a strategic plan for our community. And it's something I'm really looking forward to, because I think it's going to shape a lot of what we're doing. Because at some point, you know, we try to do all the right things, but we realize without the knowledge, we don't always know what we should be doing. So this will really help guide our city in taking the right steps. One of the comments that one of my colleagues, he's on the Racial Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging committee that this new director put into place. And one of the things that he had said to me, which was really kind of interesting, was about how many privileged people in our community take up a vast amount of our time. And at what point do you say to them, you know, the words that he would use would be different than the words I would use. But basically, to the essence of, you know, your privilege doesn't mean you get to take all of my time as a director. Like, the more that you take of my time, the less that I'm able to serve our whole community. So we're working on the messaging around that to people who are very privileged, and they're used to having a voice and getting things done, and they can call the director up and get stuff done. How do we, in working with them? So that's one of the ways that we're working with it, is recognizing that. As far as from a planning end, we're pretty fortunate that 92% of our community is within a 10-minute walk of a park. We've got a very park-focused community. And we recognized, I guess it was about 8 years ago, when the cities was looking at spending more of money, capital money that we had built up, and recognizing that we needed to make sure our most core urban parks. There is urban in Vermont. I may not realize people may not realize that, but there is urban in Vermont. I realize is a little bit different than urban everywhere. But we do have very dense neighborhoods within Burlington that really are our most diverse neighborhoods. And so just making sure that we're making the investments into those areas as we are with other ones. And we did do in 2018 a look across the city and where we were spending our capital money. And we did feel good about it. We are equitably spending that money around the city. Another comment that was made though by a colleague the other day was how much we've been spending on improving our tennis courts. And is tennis a sport that's a diverse sport? But really in Burlington, it is. It is one where we have a great program that happens right outside the Boys and Girls Club with a tennis coach who's just inspiring to the kids. So we are looking at that from the planning end. For programming, it's one where we are struggling, because one of the things we're realizing is how important transportation is. And we've not cracked the transportation nut yet. So in talking to Taisha, who is our new director, we talked about the fact that in our playground program, we call it recreation and nutrition program, but it's that sort of classic playground program that we offer in the summer. 85% of the participants are BIPOC youth. And in our fee-based program, the percentage of youth in the BIPOC youth in those programs doesn't match the percentage in our community at large. So we realize in our fee-based programs, we're not getting the diversity that we need. And so we recognize there's two parts to it. One we recognized, and two, she helped us recognize. One is the transportation piece. And the other one is on harm. What Taisha had said to us is that if she was a parent and she was sending her child to a camp where that child potentially may be the one African-American child in that program, there's a chance of harm to that child by either name calling, billing as a token, a BIPOC youth to that program. So how do we ensure that the kids, that they're not going to come to any additional harm by coming to our program, and harm, not physical harm, but more emotional harm. So that's one that I hadn't really thought about, that she said that for many of the BIPOC youth in our community, playground programs are safe. They feel safe. They know that they're going to be around kids that look like them. In our staff, we work really hard to have inclusive staff. So we don't have all the answers on it, Jody. We're working hard to try to figure it out. I'm excited about that strategic plan that's coming up that'll help educate us, and how do we do a better job of making sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our kids in our community, with everybody in our community. And one last part was on the recreation and was on the cultural events. Vermont isn't traditionally known as a very diverse state, but Burlington is, and very much so our neighboring community of Winooski, because we've been a refugee resettlement site for over 30 years. And so if you looked at the events that we're running, they're really not reflecting the culture of our community. And it's something that this year we looked at our July 4th, we call it July 3rd because we celebrate on the 3rd, but looking at that event and what does that celebrate? You know, whose freedom was that? And we will be, with Taisha coming in, we will be celebrating Juneteenth for the first time in Burlington. But what other? We've got many Tibetan, we've got Bosnians, we've got Somalis. You know, what are their holidays? And should we be doing a better job of celebrating everybody's holidays?
You know, Cindi, I'm so glad to hear this. And for people in the audience, BIPOC, that is where we're going with this. We're talking Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And I'm hearing this all the time through our field. I'm so happy to hear it, because we are transitioning into that for ethnic minority and different aspects, because we are so diverse in this country. So it's great news. And a little tidbit, in your backyard in Stowe, you actually have the first woman president of the USTA, United States Tennis Association. I worked with Judy Levering. I was on the board of directors of the USTA and the US Open with Judy. And she worked so hard to diversify the game. And a shout out to Judy, because she really led us through the country to redo the programming of tennis in this country. So again, thank you for bringing that up, because people would be very shocked the diversity that's out there and offered. Let's go ahead and go to you, Troy.
All right. So one of the things that Cindi was talking about in regards to capital, that's one of the things that we really kind of focused on and looked at where we were spending our capital dollars. Our first area that we wanted to do was take care of inner city and actually repair and upgrade a lot of the things that we have that have been around for a long time, that actually are in the more at-risk neighborhoods, and making those upgrades and repairs. And so been working with one of our council members, Councilmember Johnson, African-American, strong person in the community, and he's a great ally for our department, or maybe we're an ally for him. It's you can look at it both ways. But right. We have invested a lot of dollars into some of those areas of his district that really need those dollars, but also serve a lot of the minority folks in his area. One in particular is called McAdams Park, and we had McAdams Pool. And 2 years ago, we were looking at not just closing that pool, but demolishing that pool. And this year, we're actually putting in 1.5 million into upgrading it, and it'll be back open next summer. So 180-degree turn, working with the community on that, and that was pretty exciting, because I really thought we were going to shut that pool down for good. And it was in the heart of the African-American community, and so we were able to change that. We were also working with some private groups on bringing in dollars into a lot of our parks, and some other nonprofit partners as well. And one of them is called a League 42, which that number is Jackie Robinson's number.
Yeah. And
so there's a very strong news writer here in Wichita, sports news writer, that started the league. And obviously, in regards to Jackie Robinson, is in an African-American community. And we were finding that baseball in inner city is falling down drastically. And so his idea was to bring this league to the inner city, but he needed facilities. And what do I have? I have facilities. And so we worked together to make this happen. And we put an investment of $1.5 million on some new athletic fields for that baseball league to move forward. Huge impact, got a lot of press, got a lot of support, and all that kind of just builds on itself. So all you need is just a spark to get things rolling, and then you find that a lot of other folks start supporting that as well. So the two things that we really worked on is looking at our master plans, working at our recreation plans, and hopefully we're going to start putting that more in our policies and procedures. The capital is a huge infusion that really is making an impact. And another one is hiring staff that looks like the community and bringing that diversity into our staff. So that's one of the things that we consider when we're hiring staff. And I'm kind of proud to say that we've actually changed some of the demographics within our organization slightly, but we know that we're going to make that even more as some of our other folks retire or move on. But it is a priority of ours is how we hire to meet those needs of the public, really to match what we have in our staff that matches the community.
You know, Troy, you're very modest because I have watched your entrepreneurship and you have brought it life into some areas of Wichita. Because again, we're pretty close here. We're sister states in Missouri. I'm in Missouri and you're Kansas. And also my predecessor actually worked for Wichita. So I know your system somewhat, but I got to tell you, you've done a good job to make sure. And you don't just go to one area. I've seen you go in a lot of areas. So way to go and congratulations on that. Wichita needed you. You came at a right time for Wichita. Michael, let's go ahead and let's round this one out.
Sure, thank you. I want to start really quick with a quote or a saying that was told to me about a year ago, and it has really stuck with me. And that is that equity is inviting everybody to the dance, but inclusion is actually asking them to dance while they're there.
Oh, love it.
In some respects, we're really good at equity. We build our parks. We're making the profession does it great. We're very attuned to wanting to spread our dollars out equitably across the community, build parks within a 10-minute walk of everybody. But the question becomes, does everybody feel welcome in that park? Does it have the amenities that all these different groups want? Are we, like Cindi said, are we providing the programs in the parks, the special events that are really that everybody wants to come to, that they're interested in, and that they feel welcome in? So what I would say is right now what we're doing in Virginia Beach is we're just getting ready to start a brand new master planning process for the parks. We just wrapped up a master planning process for the rec centers. This year we'll be doing one for the parks, and for the first time ever, we will be looking at the entire park system through an equity inclusion lens in terms of things like this. Who are they serving? What amenities are there? We're in the past, park systems really never done this before, but we'll be very intentional to ensure that equity lens and that diversity lens is used. And I'll give a big shout out too as well. I want to just say, like you said, Jody, NRPA virtual was amazing.
Yes.
There was a really good session on this from Julie Waterman with City Parks Alliance, Megan Elliott with Detroit, Jane Miller with Pittsburgh, and Mitchell Silver with New York City. They gave a great session. I'm actually having all of our staff watch that session.
Smart.
Just to both educate ourselves to what other cities are doing, to ensure that we can start thinking like this as we move forward.
You know, Michael, you made a good point. Again, and that's why I mentioned even the World Urban Park. There are so many good sessions going on right now on these aspects. And boy, there was some top. I mean, I love some of the keynotes that were really addressing this. And, you know, having the uncomfortable conversation, you know, it's okay. And I think we're all ready for that. I think we're ready for that. So we'll be having more of an uncomfortable conversation as times go on. So 2021, here we come. Linda, let's go ahead and move. Anne Marie, We are ready for audience polls. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Okay, we have 2 questions for
We're
you
live.
today. We're live. We are live. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and go with the first one. And again, we get information for future shows from you and your questions and answers. So we'd like to hear your thoughts to this first one. In this fiscal year, our budget cuts reflected more than 75% cut, 60 up to 75%, 40 to 60% cut, 20 to 40, under 20%, or I've had no reduction in budget. So take a second, think about that answer, and see a lot of people voting here. So we're going to give you a couple more minutes while those bars shift around as people vote. Pretty interesting, even across the board on some of these. And we'll give it about 5 more seconds and then end the poll and share in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so there you go. Under 20% cut is the #1 answer, but there have been cuts, up to 60%, some with no reduction in budget. So that's great. A few of you out there with more than 75%. So all across the board, lots of challenges that people are facing. So let's go ahead and ask the second part of that question. And maybe some of you can guess what that is. The next fiscal year's budgeting, compared to a normal budget year, we are planning more than 75% reduction, 60 to 75, 40 to 60, 20 to 40, under 20% reduction, no reduction in budget, or an increased budget. So interesting question there. And again, everybody's voting. I see those numbers shifting as people chime in. So I'll give you a few more seconds here to vote on that one. I think it's really interesting how people are dealing with, if you think about the increased use out there of parks and how that translates into the budgets that everybody has to deal with. It's a really interesting dilemma as we move forward into the unknown. So we'll end this one now in 3, 2, 1. And share the results with you. So about the same, under 20% reduction is the top answer, but a 20-40% reduction is a close second, with 29% of you voting that way. A few of you increasing the budget, so that's interesting to see, and we have heard talk of that as more and more people use parks, and we need more things in parks and more parks for people to be able to enjoy those amenities. So interesting, and thank you all for taking the time to do that. Jody, we're going to take it back to you. Mute.
Sorry about
We're
that.
live.
Yeah, we are.
We're live.
I love this show because it's reality. But here we are. Now that departments are in your planning and development cycle of 2021 and 2022 budgets, because you're looking way out, especially in this climate right now, we're in full swing. There are 4 parts to this question. And I did give this one to you in advance so you could at least look into it and know it. So #1, when you're considering your budgets, these are the following items. Staffing. What staff adjustments are projected in the future? How do you look different, if any? Operating facilities, planning to reopen or keep the current facilities open, or are any facilities going to stay closed? Because that's what we're even hearing from some of the small communities. And again, we have some people on that are one person departments. So any advisement through any of these that you could give a 1-person department would be important. And then we have capital improvement plans. Michael, you mentioned you're kind of going through master plans and different things. Are there still improvements ahead? Are you still engaged in that process? Well, I'm hearing from Troy and different things, and you all are working on that. And then finally, adjusting and implementing master plan projects. Because of prolonged pandemics or budget cuts, is there anything that's being kind of pulled back? And you might give us any suggestions there. Just anyone looking at their budgets, what do you look at pullback? if you are pulling back on your master plan. So Troy, let's start with you this time. Again, you're a master at this, so.
Well, thank you for that confidence. We'll see in a year from now where we stand.
Hang in there.
So a little bit of background here in Wichita. We were lucky enough to be in a budget cycle that matches the annual calendar. So we started off our budget in January, and I'm going to skip right to the capital projects, and then I'll hit the other ones as well. What I always do when I have a lot of projects in the works, and we always are able to start the implementation of it in January, I don't wait. And thank God I didn't wait, because we implemented close to, and it's just this year, don't get too excited, but with our aquatics master plan, close to $30 million worth of work from including last year into this year. And that faucet quickly turned off in March. But I was able to get everything on the books, get the bonds in place, get everything going, starting the processes. So we were able to get things through. So this year looks really good, but as we move into next year, my capital projects are going to drop drastically. But the good thing is I'll have the time to really get these projects in place, and with the extra dollars that I have this year, make some small improvements throughout the rest of our organization in our parks. And then it's going to be more just assessments and really kind of proving ourselves to not just the council, but to the community, how important we are. And I'm going to flip some silver lining again. One of the things that we found is that during COVID, everybody wanted to come to our parks. I know everybody's talked about this. We are finding more trash in the parks. The parking lots are full. There's more activities going on. A lot of our outdoor programs are going very well. People are wanting more entertainment, but we have to do it socially distanced. So we know that there's that demand out there, and we just got to translate that into our documents with our proof. And when we go into our budget sessions, we can bring all this stuff up. This year for staffing, we definitely took a hit. We had put a freeze on a lot of our positions. And so a lot of folks that were transitioning out, whether it was through retirement or moving to another job or somewhere else. And I wasn't too happy with some of my other fellow departments because they started cherry picking all my best employees.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to fill those positions. We were just on a freeze. And so what we were at, already a reduction from last year. Right now we're probably at 65% of our workforce. And fortunately, we're not looking at any reductions, but by not filling them, that is a reduction, slowly but surely, because of the attrition that occurs. And I'm expecting the same thing to happen next year. So kudos to our staff. They find ways to get things done. I don't know how they do it. It's just amazing how we get everything done that was supposed to get done, even with less staff. And that's not just here, but when I was in Austin and I'm talking to my friends across the country, they're all doing the same thing as well. Facilities. So there was a time there right after COVID hit, we actually closed our recreation centers and we started slowly opening them up. Same thing with our golf courses. And this is where I have to give a shout out to Erica DeVore. She's our executive director for the Kansas Recreational Park Association. I think you and I had a little conversation about this, Jody. It was her leadership that helped us throughout this whole state. We have a lot of small communities here in Kansas. We have Johnson County and Wichita, and we're both 400,000 population plus. And then we have a lot of other little cities. And she took the lead working with a lot of other folks from within the state to help us roll out standards in regards to getting things back open again. And it was her connection with the governor, who used to actually have her position as well.
Yes.
And she has a really good understanding in regards to what needs to happen here in Parks and Recreation. So shout out to Erica and KRPA. They really helped not just us, but the whole state roll out. And like I mentioned earlier, there's so many different parameters that are happening and changing so quickly, and they're huge in helping us with that. So And then lastly, you were talking a little bit about master plans. Master planning still goes forward. We are actually transitioning one of our golf courses. We had 5 golf courses and now we're down to 4. So this transition of one of these golf courses is a huge master plan for us. It's close to 100 acres. That plan still moves forward. Planning still moves forward. And now, though, there's an issue that you have to add into is the COVID factor on a lot of different areas, whether it's because they say we're going to get through this, but it's going to happen again in a different parameter. But the financial impact is going to be a huge issue as well, how we master plan and how we program in the future. So master planning is still moving forward with a lot of different projects that we have, but actually executing those master plans, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, you're very lucky. Your governor, as you mentioned, was in our field, and I knew Laura Kelly as I was coming up as a professional. Another one that's been really working in your state has been Linda Landeman, who's over your state parks. And everybody, let's face it, we're all parks. Some way, somehow, we're having people come from all over the country, but also local when our states are open, our local people. There's just all delineations of people coming to our parks at every level. So yeah, Troy, Erica did a fantastic job. I saw that come out. It was amazing how her leadership stepped up to help you. Michael, let's come to you.
Sure. So first, here in Virginia Beach, we're a population around 450,000. But as you mentioned, I also have worked for very small systems. So I've worked for systems serving 20,000 or less and systems serving over 1 million. And there are huge differences in how people can cope, can react, and the resources they have based on where they're at. When the pandemic struck here, we were very fortunate in Virginia Beach, and I want to give a huge shout out to our city leadership. They made a commitment from the get-go that we were not going to furlough or lay off any staff, if at all possible. And that has played out to this point. So we have about 450 full-time staff and about 1,000 part-time, and nobody lost their job or was even furloughed. While the communities around us were in an entirely different situation, and they were furloughing lots of people and closing facilities. We did lose about 18 FTEs in the budget. They were vacancies. A few people had to shift into different roles, but nobody lost their job. And we're learning as we go. So it was interesting. One of the things you asked about was kind of, how we're planning to reopen and change, and have we learned anything from the pandemic? And I'll give just one example of one of the dilemmas we're facing. When the pandemic hit, we quickly propped up an essential childcare program for essential city workers and for the hospital staff.
Wow.
So that was back in April, back when nobody knew how to do this. And we're the largest childcare provider in the city. We have licensed childcare at a number of our rec centers, and we provide before and after school programming at all 56 elementary schools. And so it's a big part of our core services is childcare. It's a big part of what we do, and we do it very well. Now, we used to always have a staff to child ratio of 1 to 18. So for every 18 kids, 1 staff person. Well, that's a lot, right? Yeah. It is a lot. It keeps fees low. And if you can drop your kid off at your elementary school, not to pick them up until 6 p.m. at low cost, and we have a safe setting, that's great. Well, when we got back into doing childcare in the pandemic, we had to drop to 1 to 12 per the new standards. And we have learned that this is a good thing, and we need to kind of learn from this. And we do not want to go back to the 1 to 18 when this is all over. We're actually planning on going to a 1 to 15 so that we can adapt easier. And as Troy said, this may happen again in the future. Something's going to happen in the future. When we had to drop from 1 to 18 to 1 to 12, that was a big hit and a big change. So we'd like to move forward with a 1 to 15 in next year's budget, but then that begs the question, who's going to pay that difference, right? Because it's a higher, you have the same expenses, but less kids coming in, less revenue. So again, we're trying to learn from these things. We, just like Troy, we closed down things early, but then reopened. All of our rec centers are open. Athletics are in full swing. Everything's under modified conditions. We're learning as we go. Not all sports are back. We're not doing basketball, tackle football, rugby, things like that, but baseball, soccer, softball are all back. Our capital budget did take some reductions as well. A lot of our projects were put on hold. Thankfully, the monies weren't swept and taken, and the city is now starting to free up some of those capital dollars for projects. And so we're hoping to have some back in the near future to get some of these projects. But we still have some capital dollars, which is unlike a lot of systems out there. We have a number of projects moving along. As Troy said, you never stop planning because we're going to get through this, right? And actually, the good time to plan is now, quite honestly. So we have made some changes, and we're certainly learning through the pandemic on how to change our services moving forward.
Well, it sounds like you've really had an advantage on this programming and just the ratio. Oh my gosh, that's great. Thank you, because that's a great tip to our audience and our colleagues. And Cindi, let's wind it up with you.
Sure. So from the capital side, we're pretty fortunate in that some of our funds are dedicated funds. And so while we did have a freeze at first, the mayor wasn't sure if it would look good if we were spending $200,000 on renovating a tennis court when folks were starting to lose jobs, not within the city employees, but within our city. But we did relatively quickly realize that we needed to get these projects done, and that was providing jobs for our community by getting these projects. So we were able to get most of the projects we wanted done. We had a short delay for some as far as COVID when everybody was sent home and no construction could happen. But we've been blessed this year in Vermont. It's November 11th, and I think it's like 50 some degrees out. For us, it's all about when the asphalt plants close. Everybody's racing at this point to finish everything up before the plants close, and it looks like we're going to make it. So that's a really good news here in Vermont, that we didn't drop temperatures too fast, and we had a warm November. As far as from the facilities end, our facilities were, closed like everybody's were at one point. Then we reopened in the summer only for camps only, where we could be control their access more. And then we opened up more for rentals and such now here in the fall. From a revenue side, it looks pretty good with those rentals, but it's not as good. You now need to leave, 30 minutes between ice cuts, where before, it's about 12 minutes between an ice cut. Those guys can go around pretty fast on their Zamboni, but now we don't have time for one group to get in, then the next, the other one has to leave before the next one. So we're losing, I think it's at about 18 minutes or so we lose every hour of time. And so that's a change, and that adds up over the course of a day. Same thing with our gym, where we maybe would do a group of 9, a group of 10, you stack them up. You can't stack them up anymore because you've got to get one out before you can get the next one in. Some of those, some of the revenue's good. I could build a second gym. If I could magically go like that and a gym would pop up, we would fill it in an instant. So I just found out today, that the soccer club that's based in a nearby community just lost their indoor space because they're needing to do a pop-up COVID site. And so they reached out to us to say, hey, we need gym time. And I was like, good luck with that one. We're full, so because no one can get into the schools because they're all closed down. So some areas we're seeing really, really good use, which helps on the revenue end. As far as FY22 is going to be really tough. I don't think I have a sense of how hard it's going to be, but I know it's going to be really hard because our budget was propped up with about $2 million of unassigned fund balance, so that we did not have to do full layoffs across our division, because we have a campground that makes us a lot of money. Our city chose this summer to use it as a sanctioned homeless site, which really was phenomenal, because what became of that was the mayor's goal was to have a year-round low barrier site. And because we closed our campground and made that available, they were able to then get some CARES money. And we now have, they bought an inn, And now we have a low barrier year-round site in Burlington. And I like to think that our community's investment of allowing our campground to be used this summer in this manner and let go of about $400,000 worth of revenue. We did our part to help make that happen. But that was a lot of revenue. And we have a marina that makes us a lot of money. Our waterfront makes a lot of money for us. In the marina, Canada's, the border's been closed. The locks down in New York were closed. So there was not that influx of the Canadian visitors. They're about half of the users of our marina, and about a third they were at the campground. So there was a lot of money that we lost, but our community didn't leave us behind. When we had the first meeting with the finance, I thought, oh my gosh, what are they going to say? Am I going to have to make up that money? Like, there's no way you could do that without people. No way without doing it without losing people.
Right.
And they did. So they invested in us, invested in our department, realizing how important it was. But what's going to happen in FY22? We don't know. We know that we're going to be able to open our campground again because they did get that year-round shelter. We know our marina will be open, but we don't know, is Canada going to be coming down by then? We know our facilities will still be in good shape. We have our events at the waterfront. We're not really sure. But so we'll, take it a little bit a day at a time with that. But again, I think the great work that everybody's been doing across the country has really helped people realize that it is important what we do. And our department had the most support percentage-wise of any department in the city of needing that support of the unassigned fund balance because we were so revenue dependent. And we were supported. And everybody was able to do that great work in our community. So I give, kudos to our mayor and to our city council for, really believing in the good work that we're doing.
And flexibility. Cindi, I'm hearing it loud and clear. Your department was able to enact flexibility and come to rise to the occasion of the need. Relevant. Way to go. And Anne-Marie, this is one of our favorite times of the show. I'm handing it over to you. It's time for recognition.
All right. This absolutely is one of our favorite times of the show. And we are going to jump right into it here with Good News in Parks About Great People, where we ask our panelists to just share some information about somebody on their staff, person or team that's just been doing a great job, and to tell us a little bit about that. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in with Cindi.
All right. So I am excited to go first with this. So our department is full of amazing, smart, creative people. When I first started for the city, I thought, oh my gosh, like everybody's smarter than I am. And so how do you manage like really highly intelligent people that are leading these own divisions? So I'm very fortunate. So we've got amazing people, but I want to talk about Senge. So Senge is our facility coordinator. Part of our work that we do is that we're responsible for the custodial in all of our public not for most of our public buildings, to include City Hall, the library, the police station. We have the custodians for those spaces. And Senge is phenomenal. He's been working for the city for about 18 years. He manages 8 custodians in all these different public buildings. And as I think it was either Troy or Michael mentioned earlier, I mean, the rules kept changing of what we were supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to clean. And Senge throughout that whole time didn't lose his patience. He worked with his crews to help them understand. He advocated for his crews when he needed to be advocating for them, and was flexible, about work that needed to be done. And, one of the more recent ones we added a Portland loo. I'm sure some of you have heard of the Portland loo. It's this, bathroom, metal, somewhat indestructible bathroom. We now have one in our City Hall park. And Senge was great. We met with him about would it be possible for the custodians to be able to clean that for us. It's right next to one of the buildings. And he figured out a way that they could get it done. We added a half-time custodian position, helping with the water resources. We met with Senge. Is there a way to make this work? We talked it through, and in that can-do attitude gets it done every time. So we often say that the whole public buildings part would fall apart if Senge ever left us. So with all that's been going on with COVID, I just want to get my hats off to Senge and my appreciation for the great work that he's doing for our city.
Yeah, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you, Senge, for everything you're doing. Challenging job, and one that is so important for facilities and people's ability to, enjoy them. So that's completely awesome. All right, let's go right ahead with Troy.
All right, so this is my recreation team, and they're wearing these shirts that says recreation is essential. Now, this was kind of a backlash from what happened. We actually closed our recreation centers and we had to furlough most of the recreation staff. But once we got the facilities back open and get going into some of our summer programming, they just took off and they just were flexible, but also just undaunted by doing things and getting things done and trying new things. And so we heard loud and clear that our community loves our recreation staff and our parks. So we're going to take that and just keep moving it forward. But I was so proud of these folks. All of them just really kind of took the challenge and started trying new things. We've got new programs. We got new ways of delivering the programs. We did a virtual fishing tournament. Just all kinds of new ideas of trying to get people to still make sure they're still engaged. And so I'm so appreciative of my staff. They've been doing wonderful things, and they're the foundation of this organization.
That's awesome. You know, I can tell that these are happy people. Isn't it amazing how some folks, you can tell that they're smiling even behind their mask? I mean, every one of those folks, you can see the big, broad smile on their face. So that's fantastic. All right, Michael, tell us about Brett.
Okay, well, I've been watching this show now for a few months, and I've always loved this part of the show. And then when I was asked to be a speaker, I said, oh, no, I can only pick one person or one group. I want to pick everybody. But I'm going to go with Brett Gordon. Brett Gordon is one of our amazing inclusion specialists. And really what I want to talk about is he just joined us a couple of years ago as a part-time, was quickly promoted to full-time. But in 2018, we started a new special event called Unity Week. And Unity Week is all about celebrating our differences and kind of embracing the uniqueness of all people, all races, creeds, religions, LGBTQ, you name it, it's all about unity. And this special event under Brett's leadership has just taken off. Within 1 year, it became a citywide event. All the departments were included with we had orange shirts and bands and light up across the city. The public got involved. It's been amazing. It was voted the best new special event in 2018 by the Virginia Recreation and Park Society. So we won that award. And then this year with COVID, that didn't stop it. This was in October. Brett and his team set up a series of online conversations covering everything from race to LGBTQ issues to a panel of religious experts from different religions that the public could talk to. And he just took it another step further. So in the spirit of inclusion and equity, I'm going to go with Brett Gordon, one of our amazing staff that's really spearheaded our Unity Week. And if you want to learn more, just go to our Facebook page or our website to learn about Unity Week in Virginia Beach.
That's cool. That sounds like a great program. And when you think about inclusion, it's one word, but it means so much and so many different things to so many different people. And so to have somebody that is a specialist in that's absolutely incredible. So, all right. Love that part. It's just the most feel-good part of the whole show. We just absolutely love it. But it is time to take some questions from our audience. So let's go ahead and jump in with those. And I love this one. This is from an anonymous attendee. They didn't put their name, but it's a great question. What is the most important role that parks play in changing the attitude and behaviors of the community to break down social barriers?
Anyone can answer.
Anyone can answer, absolutely.
I think one of the things is that we need to make sure that when our facilities are available to everybody, that different people use them. So when people are exposed to people of different races, people who look differently, when you have that exposure and you have opportunities to meet them, have a conversation with them, or even just be in their proximity, that can start to change people's perceptions of others. And so it's all about providing the opportunities for people to be around other people not like them. And parks do that very well with our programming, with our facilities, with our amenities. with all the things that we do. And I think that's really important to make sure we provide and encourage those opportunities for mixing.
To add what Michael's talking about, just the diversity of folks that use our parks and the user groups. So we have the user groups that go across the whole gamut of things. Those pickleball folks, they're the ones that let me know that they're using our parks. And we have some folks that there's a little group that they like to shoot rockets, and so we had to make sure we find a little spot for them to shoot rockets in one of our parks. The folks that really want to engage in nature. And so, what Michael's talking about is having all those places available, but it's also reaching out to those folks and learning out who in your community needs services. And that's one of our most important jobs. And to share that, not with just our staff, but also with our elected officials and our big decision makers as well, because everybody's interests are important, and that just makes us more diverse and more powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Robert in the audience wants to know, do you expect any changes in funding considering potential changes in the political climate?
I know one of the things that we're sort of cautiously optimistic on is that there'll be some local funding, that some of the money coming from federal, that there may be, that was, I don't want to try not to get too political on the show. And so, but that is something that our mayor indicated, that he's a little bit more cautiously optimistic now, that there may be some local funding to help with the fact that municipalities have taken it hard with this, with reduced funding. And so that's where we're cautiously optimistic with the change that we may see some money local.
I most definitely think that knee-jerk reaction with COVID is definitely going to have an impact. And a lot of folks are just trying to make sure that they're covering all of their expenses and all their needs. But as I've been saying a couple times already, that I think a lot of communities are really valuing parks and recreation even more now than ever. And what I thought was going to be a dismal future for us is actually not so bad. I think we have to get through the initial shock. And a lot of my colleagues from across the country, they've been talking about really big cuts in their budgets. But I think it's going to be those user groups that are going to really call out and say, we really need to make sure that Parks and Recreation is funded well, because we've already been cut. We're already down to the bottom, and you really can't cut much more without losing our services, and our services are so important.
Very true. Very true. All right. Well, we want to take the last couple minutes here to share some more good news with you. First of all, talk about our next show, which is going to be December 3rd. We're going to take a little time off here for the Thanksgiving holidays, but we will be back with you live on December 3rd at 1 o'clock with episode 9, Drive and Determination, with these amazing folks right here. And I'll tell you, just continue to blow my mind with these fabulous panels. I cannot wait to hear from these folks and the news that they have to share with us. So as always, you can register at playcorps.com/events. And we also like to put the address there that your certificates of completion will come from, so that you can whitelist those, because every once in a while those do get caught by a spam filter. The other good news that we have to share is that we have been picked up for season 2. So pretty excited. Yeah. In January, we will start season 2. So those episodes are not on the website yet, but hopefully by December 3rd, when we do that, that one will invite you all to come in and sign up for those. I know a lot of folks came in at the very beginning of season 1 and literally signed up for every single one. So we are just blown away and honored by your support, and hope that you found the show useful. We are blown away by what you have to say and the satisfaction levels that everybody has. So we're excited to be back for season 2, and we hope to have those ready for you to sign up by December 3rd. So Jody, final words, take us out.
Well, I tell you, so much information today, and I can't thank you three enough. You're the heart and soul of our field. You translate it so well, but you are constantly trying to improve. I've heard you today, and I don't even know where this hour and 15 minutes went. I mean, it flew by, but the bottom line is your heart and soul. We thank you so much. And you're official alumni. So there's going to be another future date we all get together, but also keep mentoring. You are the supreme models of mentoring. Thank you. We need you. Great job, you guys.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Jody and Anne Marie, for inspiring us, and to my D School alumni, Michael and Troy. It's so great to be on the show with you.
Exactly.
Definitely. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
Cheers.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, there have just been some really great comments that have come in from Leslie. Says, thank you to all, very informative and enjoyable. We heard from a commissioner that this was her first episode and found it very, very useful. Thank you all. Great panel. So excited about what you all had to share today. So thank you again. We were thrilled to have you, and we will see you all on the next show, December 3rd. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
D School.